My brothers and sisters, good evening. We should owe nothing to anyone. Sa Tagalog, dapat wala tayong utang kanino man. Agree ba kayo dyan? This was said by Saint Paul in the second reading in his letter to the Romans. He said here, brothers and sisters, owe nothing to anyone. Dapat wala kayong utang kanino man. And hence, if we owe something to anyone, we should already settle them. Just as St. Paul says, because St. Paul says, owe nothing to anyone. However, St. Paul added something more. Aside from saying, owe nothing to anyone, he added, except to love one another. So mayroong exception. Because loving one another is always what we owe. What we always owe is loving our neighbor. Although he said we should owe nothing to anyone, we always owe something. And that something is loving one another. Laging utang natin yan sa Diyos. Na mahalin natin ang ating kapwa. Kaya we should always settle that. Loving one another. And one way of always settling our of loving one another is not doing evil to our neighbor. This is what St. Paul also says in the second reading from his letter to the Romans. He said here, love does no evil to the neighbor. It means that if we really love our neighbor, we should never do evil to him or her, even if he or she does evil to us. But what shall we do if our neighbor himself is doing evil to us, or evil to others, or evil wherever he is or wherever she is? And the answer to that question can be found in the first reading from the book of the prophet Ezekiel. In this first reading, the Lord says, if I tell the wicked, O wicked one, you shall surely die, and you do not speak out to dissuade or discourage the wicked from his way, the wicked shall die for his guilt, but I will hold you responsible for his death. Ganun pala yun. But if you warn the wicked, trying to turn him from his way, but he refuses to turn from his way, ayun niya, kasamaan pa rin siya. The Lord says, he shall die for his guilt, but you shall save yourself. So, this means that if our neighbor does evil to us, we should speak out to discourage him. Kausapin natin siya para hindi niya itutuloy ang kanyang masamang ginagawa. And warn him to turn from his wicked way. And this is what we call fraternal correction, which the Lord also encourages us to do in the gospel. But we will just concentrate on the first reading. So we should do fraternal correction. And if we do not do fraternal correction, because we do not speak out to discourage our wicked neighbor from his or evil ways, then our wicked neighbor shall die for his guilt, but the Lord will hold us responsible for his death. Ang bigat naman ito, no? Kapag wala pala tayong ginagawa, sa tahimik lang tayo, parang seeing no evil, hearing no evil, in the midst of evil and wickedness being done by our neighbor, then that does not pass to the Lord. He does not agree with that. You have to do something to help discourage our wicked neighbor from his evil ways. Because if we do not do fraternal correction, as the prophet Ezekiel here tells us, the Lord will hold us responsible for his death. Because if we are doing wicked things, we are spiritually dead. So that is what will happen to us if we do not do fraternal correction. However, if we do fraternal correction because we warn our wicked neighbor, trying to turn him from his evil ways, but he or she refuses to turn away from his wicked ways, that wicked neighbor of ours shall die for his guilt, but we shall save ourselves. So that is what will happen to us. Kapag tinutuwid natin ang ating kapatid sa kanyang mga kasamaan, the Lord will not hold us responsible, but we will save ourselves. In a way, this happened to PhilHealth. Kanina sa radyo, narinig ko marami ang express their dismay and frustration and anger at what happened in PhilHealth. Sabi nila, contribute tayo ng contribute dyan sa PhilHealth na yan, tapos nanakawin lang pala ng mga taga roon. That's why we salute those who had the courage to stand out and speak against the agency's horrendous evil and wickedness that has endangered the healthcare program for all sick Filipinos, making huge fortune out of the money allotted for the sick is really sickening. It is a sin that cry out to God for vengeance. So my brothers and sisters, there will always be evil everywhere. But the Lord expects us, not the attitude, not with the attitude of seeing no evil, hearing no evil, parang walang narinig, walang nakikita, nakasamaan, nagbubulag-bulagan, nagbibingi-bingian sa mga kasamaang nangyayari sa kapaligiran. Ayon ni Lord po yun. May pananagutan po tayo. He expects that we have to do something against the evil that we see and hear around by doing fraternal correction. And if we do this, then we continue to settle what we always owe, and that is loving our neighbor.